Greetings once again. It is I, your friend and humble narrator, Squancho the Monkey Boy, here to read once more from the greatest story ever told, Ballsfart and the Forest of Penises. Today we'll be reading chapter 7, but I really wanted to make sure that we got it out of the way, that there was definitely a trigger warning at the beginning of today's reading. I kind of forgot about that last time, and I sorely regret it. So all right, everybody who has any sort of any beliefs, if you have any concept of morality, be it like a religious ideology or like a political ideology, you're probably gonna be offended. There's anybody who is yourself or are familiar with anyone who is quote unquote a differently abled person. He has definitely put lots of terrible things about them in here. Anyone of any sexuality or gender, heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, men, women, non-binary, transgendered, he almost certainly will say something that is probably very offensive to you. So just a heads up to that. He has surprisingly not said anything what you might recognise it as racist, but he has definitely said a lot of very what I would describe as ethnocentric things about mermaids and leprechauns. And let me just say, I won't put it past him to offend those sensibilities going along. So glad we got that out of the way. All right, chapter 7, entitled Ballsfart. Very clever pun. I woke up and ate some breakfast while L'Oreal put the finishing touches on the spell. So I was wondering, I said as I bit down on a hearty forkful of poached eggs, did you get these eggs from those shit birds? L'Oreal continued mixing her potions. Seriously, dude? Of course not. Come on, I transfigure matter. Oh, right. I brushed away the bits of yolk that were now tangling in my scruffy beard. Well then, what were those eggs before you made them into eggs? Rocks? Giant lice? Oh, really? Wow, that's fucking dope. Yup, sure is. L'Oreal took a sip from her tea. Yeah, those lice were inedible before. Good job. Oh, and one more question. How come it provoked the dragon when I chewed off one of those giant foreskins? You chewed off one of those giant foreskins? I just wanted to know what it was like. Yeah, sure, man. Well, firstly, in case you haven't gathered this yet, that's not a dragon. It's a drake. If it were a dragon, you'd be dead. And secondly, that drake seems to be in some capacity answering to the Baron. And obviously, the Baron loves his dicks. But the dragon burned down a ton of those dicks with his own dick. And more importantly, I had already chopped down a bunch of dicks when I first got here. The dragon never attacked me for those. Again, it's not a dragon, it's a drake. And, well, for one thing, the Baron and or drake seems to have a range of awareness. I don't know how far it is, but you can probably get away with chopping cocks around the rim of the forest. Once you get close enough to the mountains, though, they start keeping an eye on you. And to answer your second question, as far as to why the Baron lets the Drake destroy his precious giant penises, but not you, that's probably because the Baron likes his dragon and lets it do whatever the fuck it wants. Who knows? I'm not the Baron. She glanced at a nearby bowl, which was now glowing a hazy green. Looks like it's time to go, Ballsfart. She dipped the head of her staff into the bowl. Are you ready to get fishy? I chuckled. You know, it's almost funny. Here, I had been avoiding these rivers this whole time, living off shit water for over a week. And yet, surprise, the rivers were my way out of here all along. L'Oreal turned to me with concern. You've been living off shit water for over a week? I didn't respond to that. You know what? Whatever. Just take those pants off. I don't want you to tear them when your legs fuse together. I removed the pants, again revealing my flaccid little willy. So you know, L'Oreal, before I go full fish... L'Oreal stopped at the door and turned around. What? I was just wondering, you know, if you want to, you know, if I want to what? No, I don't know. I was just thinking maybe, you know, because you've been all alone in this cave for so long. Do I want to fuck you? Yeah. What? No, Ballsfart. What the fuck, man? Are you fucking kidding me? You showed up here covered in your own shit. I didn't even want to fuck you in college, and that was before you were nearly this fat. You think I'd want to fuck you now? Oh my gods, you seriously think that I'm that desperate out here? No, I was just saying, wow. Unfucking believable, man. Just, wow. You know what? Shut the fuck up before I change my mind, okay? Just move. Go. Wait at the mouth of the cave until I'm ready. Wow. I'm sorry. I stepped through the door that led toward the cave's entrance. I just figured that, you know, because I'm an adventurer now. Because you're an adventurer? Seriously? Do you know how many adventurers there are in the world, Ballsfart? Or did you forget that I'm a fucking elf? We're all hot as fuck. You honestly think I can't find a dick out here? I'm literally surrounded by the goddamn things. Just go, man. Just take a seat at the mouth of the cave. We are done here. Okay. I moped forward into the dark and rocky chamber. At the far end, bright light was trickling in, and I could hear the buzzing of giant flies as I approached. Upon reaching the entrance, I could see that the sky was now overcast. It seemed as though it might even rain. I stopped and waited at the mouth of the cave, and after a couple minutes, L'Oreal joined me. All right, now sit down so you don't fall over when you become a merman. Wait. But if you turn me into a merman here, then how do I get to the water? Dude, I already prepared the spell. If you wanted another timer, you should have said so. Once I turn your legs into fish, you're just gonna have to hoof it to the nearest river. It should be about a mile that way. Don't worry about it. If you see or hear the drake, just flop on back. Otherwise, there aren't any predators out here. You'll be fine. Okay. I wasn't happy about this revelation, but I didn't seem to have any say in the matter. Well, then let's do this, I guess. I sat my naked ass down onto the dirt, and L'Oreal's eyes glowed bright as she recited a magical incantation. She then tapped the end of her staff to my legs, and I could immediately feel the change. My muscles and bones were fusing together. My skin became itchy as it dried out, forming scales. My foot bones stretching and expanding while my leg bones became segmented and fluid. It didn't hurt, but it definitely felt super fucking weird. L'Oreal then said something else and tapped the staff on my torso, one tap under each of my arms. This caused the trippiest part of the transformation, as a bunch of long slits opened up at the bottom of my ribcage, each with fleshy pink sheets protruding out. I took a deep breath into my mouth, held my lips tight, and exhaled through my rib slits. That was fucked up. Finally, L'Oreal said the last of her magic words before tapping the staff against my jaw. I then felt my teeth extend, my canines growing long, and small tusk-like protrusions pushing out from my lower lip. I touched these points with my fingertip. They were sharp. Good work. I then felt around the rest of my body. Altogether, it was a pretty fucking bizarre sensation, but that was to be expected. At last, the transfiguration was complete. Cool, so there you go. Like I said, the river's that way. You've got 1 week to get through the mermaid tunnels, starting now. Any questions? Yes, I said, my new tusks causing a bit of a speech impediment. How do I find you when it's time to kill your pirate friends? Don't worry about that. I'll find you. But for now, I'm fine. I'm getting a lot of work done out here. Don't expect me to come knocking anytime soon. Just go. And good luck, Ballsfart. It was nice seeing you again, I guess. Or whatever. And then, with those awkward parting words, I was off, crawling and flopping like a drunken seal through those giant magical wings, gradually inching my way towards what I hoped would be a river. Of course, walking on foot had already been slow enough, but flopping was downright ridiculous, and adding insult to injury, it was even more exhausting. I had to repeatedly take short breaks about every 100 feet, always hiding beneath big, shady cocks and catching my breath, while keeping a lookout for that dragon. It was not a very practical strategy, and I was reminded that I really should have planned this one out better. Eventually, after well over an hour, I finally made it to the river that L'Oreal was referring to. This was it. Time to see if I passed. Time to see if these gills worked. Time to see if L'Oreal's transfiguration would keep me from being murdered. I flopped to the edge of the river and could just faintly make out a couple mer people passing in the distance. Holy shit! Those fuckers could tear my throat out. Closing my eyes, I then shook off the terror, took a deep breath, and shoved my face beneath the surface of the water. Underneath, the view was almost crystal clear. I could see several mertards swimming by, moving in both directions. It wasn't a busy area, though it was definitely populated. But then, without warning, one of those fuckers suddenly turned to face me. And in my surprise, I opened my mouth and took in a deep gulp of water. I couldn't breathe it, though. It just went right into my belly. I then jerked my head out of the water as that extremely deadly mer guy approached, my heart pounding like a gong while his head rose calmly above the surface. He wasn't angry. In fact, he just looked confused. Oh, shit. For a second there, I thought you were like a human or something. I was going to eat your organs. Are you alright? You look fucked up. What's your deal? I stuttered. Hi. Yes. I've been living with the humans. That's why I am out here on the land, like a human. What? Why have you been living with humans? And what's wrong with your eyes? Because I had to. Because I got captured. Because it's a very long story. The merman trilled something in the mermaid language. I think it's called sploosh or something. It doesn't matter. Mermaids have their own stupid language, but no one cares because pretty much everyone can speak conlang these days. Unfortunately though, not knowing the mermaid language myself, I just stared in astonishment. Yeah, whatever, man. You seem pretty fucked up. You want to get in here? Because if not, someone might confuse you for a human or something. What? Yes, I do want to get in there. Hold on. Just let me lower my body in to the water. Slowly. Just like this. There we go. Ah, it feels so good to be back in water, you know, because I'm a mer person, just like you. Ah, yes. The merman said nothing, though his expression was one of complete disgust. He then turned, leaving me alone and floating waist-deep in the river. The current wasn't strong, that was good, and for a second I just hung out there, bobbing up and down in place. Those previous rivers had been rushing, but this one was nice and easy. A good place to get started. I tested out my fishy half, moving my flipper back and forth. Good job, L'Oreal. It seemed to work pretty well. In fact, even a slight thrust could keep me afloat. I thought that was pretty cool because it meant that if I ever wanted to really push it, I could probably go pretty fast underwater. Gradually, I lowered myself further down. It was now time for the big test. I dunked my head for a second time and stared once more, in horror, at the passing mer people. Again, I opened my mouth and took a big gulp of water. And once more, I just swallowed it. But I stayed underwater this time, and I tried again. Damn it, it just wasn't working. But then, out of fucking nowhere, a middle-aged mermaid lady approached me with a stick and started poking me. Her voice was muffled, but audible under the water, and she spoke in the mermaid tongue. I, of course, had no fucking idea what she was saying, but she seemed to be asking a question. Yes, hi, I gurgled awkwardly in response.
I'm just getting back into the swing of things.
You need help?
No, I'm quite alright.
What the fuck's wrong with your eyes?
I'm foreign?
Here, you look pathetic. Hold on. And with that, the powerful merwoman grabbed me by my tail fin and began dragging me deep underwater. I fought this descent with everything I had, but despite looking like one of them, I had nowhere near the supernatural strength afforded to most mermaids. Downward we plunged as I flailed my arms insanely, but the old whore just would not let me go. I fought and swung and eventually punched her right in her stupid face, which caused her to flare her massive teeth and shove me into the bottom of the river. As I smacked into the muck, I opened my mouth and inhaled a dark cloud of muddy water. At first I was just drowning, choking and panicking, but then I felt it. The mud water passed right through my rib slits. Holy fuck! I took another breath. Swish! There it went again. I was really doing it. I was alive. And then that merwoman punched me in the face, and that's when I blacked out. When I woke up, I was floating face down in the river. It was raining now, and I could feel the little droplets tingling on my back. Most of the surrounding merfolk just passed by, paying me no attention. The few that did seem to notice me seemed to be disgusted with what they saw, often averting their eyes or those of their children. I surveyed the area. The mer cunt that had knocked me out was nowhere to be seen. That was good. I rubbed my swollen cheek before taking another breath. Damn. It felt so weird breathing water through my torso, but it worked. I was doing it. I was mermaiding. I flicked my tail and dove down under. At this point, the river was about 20 feet deep and it was clear, but there wasn't much to see. Just underwater plants and the occasional catfish and maybe an eel. In the distance, I could see a small structure, so I swam towards that. It was a little collection of rods constructed from coral, and it had a sign on top with an arrow and the symbol of a merperson on it. I couldn't read its writing, but I was pretty sure that it probably said Naiadis, that way. Bingo. I began swimming in the direction of the arrow, trying to move at the same speed as everyone else so that I didn't draw any more attention to myself, but no matter what I did, other merpeople still seemed to be repelled by my presence. Was it my fat belly? My smell? My clearly non-mermaid beard? Or was it perhaps my lack of secondary fins? My non-black eyes? Was it my fat belly? And then it dawned on me. It was the shells. Female merpeople wear shells on their tits, but the male merpeople wear them over their dicks, like a codpiece. Here, I'd had my very human-looking dick just flopping all over, flapping back and forth with each thrust of my tail. Of course, they were treating me like I was a creep, because from their silly mermaid perspective, I almost kind of was. I dove down to the bottom of the river and glided along the floor while I searched for a suitable shell to cover my telltale cock. Finally, I found something that looked like it might work. I grabbed it and tried to pick it up, but the shell seemed suction cupped onto a small boulder. I then searched around for a small flat rock to pry it off. You know, like the kind of rock you might use for skipping stones on a lake. When I found such a stone, I dug it under the fat, sticky, snail-like creature that was connected to the shell. And with a little torque, the whole thing popped right off. Good job, me. Next, I stuck this snail thing and its shell onto my dick. Done. Wait, nope. It slid right off. I stuck it back on there again, this time holding it in place, hoping that it used its suction on my groin area. And though I honestly expected this to fail, to my surprise it did not. Good stuff. Now to find that stupid city. I continued down the river, the current moving against me. It wasn't too bad, but as I went along, I could tell that the flow was picking up. Then I came to a fork. There was another sign there, and it pointed to the right, so that's the direction that I chose. This new path was more populous, and I could see that the mer people had a lot more going on than I'd previously known about. Many wore hats and other accessories made from shells and coral, and some wore strange dress-like garments made from seaweed. Some, too, were hauling big bundles of kelp, dragging them behind themselves on a line. I'm not sure what this cargo was, but it seemed to be pretty common. The wildlife in this fork was getting more interesting as well. Some of the creatures were surprisingly brightly coloured for river fish, and I even saw a small school of freshwater calamari. Someone's small mer-child noticed these calamari as well, and after getting permission from her mer-dad, the kid swam up to the school and ate a couple of little squiddies in a single bite. Not a bad idea. Once the pair was gone, I sped after the little school myself, catching a couple and throwing them down the hatch. Nice. They were pretty tasty, though very chewy, but not nearly as chewy as that giant foreskin. Again, I came to another fork, but by this point the current was almost overwhelming. For the mer people, it was nothing, but I knew that I probably couldn't stand a fight against any more pressure. Luckily, though, there were now two signs, both vaguely saying the same thing, but pointing in two different directions. One of these directions led downstream, so that was the fork that I followed. The current turned out to be pretty fast, and combined with the flapping of my big flappy tail, which he spells is the wrong kind of tail, but all right. I was flying at a pretty awesome clip now. As I zoomed along, I thought that this must be what it felt like for that dragon to soar through a canyon or something. And to make matters even better, there were hardly any mer people in this stream. The path was all mine. I darted around bends and rocketed under archways, and up ahead I could see that the water was frothing. And by the time I realised what was happening, it was already too late. I tried to stop and turn around, but was already hurling helplessly over an immense waterfall. Shit. Looking back, I guess that it was probably at least 100 feet tall, but it's hard to say when you're in that situation. I just know that the fall felt like it took a really long time, and I had already been moving pretty quickly towards the precipice, so I actually shot right out of the water for most of it, spending a few seconds descending through the open air, dive bombing face first towards the surface of the water below, which at that speed would be like diving into granite. Rightfully, in that moment I assumed that I was done for. Surely, if hitting the water didn't kill me, I'd be crushed atop huge jagged rocks or something. But as I got to the bottom, I was enveloped in the torrential mists that exploded at the waterfall's base. And the next thing I knew, I was being pushed downward by 1,000,000 tons of water, the whole thing battering me like the fist of a giant, pressing me downward into the darkness. Further and further I descended, too weak to even dream of fighting against such a force, until finally I started seeing stars. I figured that I must be passing out, but when you pass out, the stars you see are normally white. These, on the other hand, were blue. Bright blue. And they were big. They were less like stars and more like spheres. I took a big breath of cold water and realized that I was no longer being pushed down upon. I was now maybe 40 or 50 feet deep, but I was fine, and I was floating in the entrance of a large underwater cave. Its walls lined with 2 rows of glowing blue bulbs, each about the size of my head. It took me a moment to realize what I was even looking at. This was the entrance to some deep underground network of watery caves. And if the signs were right, this was how I would get to the city. From here on out, I would be swimming in the dark, and the next time that I would see sunlight, I would be climbing up Right Fist's toilet with a magic sword up his ass. Speaking of which, side note, I could really use a magic sword. Cautiously, I swam forward into the cave, passing alone among those eerie blue lamps, both rows extending before me at a downward angle, seemingly into infinity. But other than those lights, my path was total darkness, and there was nothing else to guide me as the water grew colder and quieter. That was odd. Where was everybody? Was this not the entrance to the city? I became more uncomfortable with each passing yard and started picking up speed. Those orbs kept me from scraping against the jagged edges of the cave, but they didn't illuminate everything, and just beyond them I could see many off-shooting tunnels. These were deep, but none of them were lit, and I did not like that. Eventually, I found a sign connected to one of the walls, and on it I expected to see another arrow or a mer person or maybe some squiggles, but it didn't feature any of those things. No, instead it had only a picture. The image of a giant croctopus. And that's how it ends. That's how that chapter ends. All right, well, in hindsight, I think I might have overreacted at the beginning. You really can't tell which chapters are worse than others. Don't get me wrong, maybe I'm just getting desensitized to the brilliant quality writing of my lord, Sir Ballsfart. Just again, he wants me to remind you to please like and subscribe, and also give him your money. So that's it for this week. Next time we will be reading from chapter 8 of Sir Ballsfart and the Forest of Penises. This is my life. Okay, bye.